The Europeans came to the Americas. They found various ways to exploit the Native Americans, mostly for their labor. So, one of the first ways was through the Encomienda system. And so the Spanish came and they set up these huge encomienda systems where Spanish nobles were granted large tracts of land, and then any natives on that land they could use as a labor source or collect taxes from them. And the encomienda system was kept in place until about 1540. And then it was outlawed, but the effects of it kind of lingered for a while. But even when the encomienda system was outlawed, the same basic exploitation of the natives took place, just under different names. For example, in South America, they used the Mita system. And this was based on the older Inca tradition of the Mita system, where people had to go and work for the state for part of the year. Well, the Spanish used that to their advantage and used the Mita system to force natives to work for free. And so they would have to either work for free or work for very low wages for part of the year under this Mita system in Peru. And it really wasn't until the 17th century that we begin to see improvements. And some natives simply began to flee villages and move into the cities to avoid this forced labor. And gradually, natives would be able to choose the work that they do and eventually get paid, again, very low wages, but eventually they did get paid for their work. Now, with the spread of plantations in the Americas also came a great need for labor. And again, initially they tried to use natives as a labor source, but it simply wasn't working. There were too few Native Americans left. The Native American population had been decimated by European diseases, and so there simply weren't enough of them. Furthermore, the natives weren't familiar with European farming techniques. They were also more likely to escape. And so this need for labor is what's going to lead to an increase in slavery in the Americas. And so Africa was chosen as a place to export slaves from, partially because they already had an existing slave network in place. Since 800 CE or so, the Muslim world had been taking slaves out of Africa, both across the Sahara Desert and off the east coast of Africa, to the Muslim world. And so the Europeans tapped into this existing network and simply diverted it to the Atlantic coast. And a lot of this was done by the Portuguese because they already had all these trading posts set up along the coast of Africa. And so African kings are going to trade slaves to the Portuguese, who are then going to transport them to the Americas. And many of them are going to go to the Caribbean, where we had large numbers of sugar plantations, Brazil as well. In fact, about 40% of all slaves brought to the Americas went to the Caribbean, and about another 40% went to Brazil. And as sugar plantations continued to spread, the need for slavery continued to increase. And because of the high death rates of the slaves in the Americas, that led to a constant need to bring in more.